Welcome everyone. Hello, hello. I see some new faces. Oh, hey Chris, long time no see. Really nice to see you here. Hi everyone, welcome. Yes, we are. This is the fourth session. I'm going to lose track of these soon enough. This is the fourth session of Collab Fest. We are celebrating collaboration in distributed teams for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. What you're seeing on the screen is a quick check-in that I've prepared for you. How do you feel about culture in remote settings? Just hover over and drop your avatar on the emoji, on that feeling. The music that you're hearing in the background, it is you can control that, so you can just tune it up or down if you want. So you are finding that at the bottom of the screen, and then you're going to see the volume slider. I'm going to turn mine a bit slower. For the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to talk about culture. Culture, especially for remote teams, distributed teams, and how you can take that challenging and wicked task and turn it into your competitive advantage. If anything that it's been shared and discussed for the next 45 minutes is sparking an idea, it's sparking a takeaway, a learning, something that you would like to share with the world, feel free to do so on social media, on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Use the hashtag CollabFest 2022 and tag Butter so we find your posts. And at the end of the day, we are having a raffle and we're giving away 20 free live stream tickets for the Design Matter conference. It's a 2-day conference for designers, by designers, a lot of good stuff happening there from amazing folks, from amazing companies. So we're really, really happy for this collaboration and be able to send 20 of you there to enjoy that experience. So feel free to take screenshots and share your learnings on LinkedIn. And speaking of screenshots, the session is being recorded. It's going to be made available to all of us soon, probably beginning of next week, together with a virtual goodie bag that we have prepared with tons of discounts and freebies and downloadables, so you can take something away from Collab Fest as well. And one other thing, if this is not the first session you're attending today, you already know the drill. I'm keen to hear if anyone is here now in Butter for the very, very, very first time. Feel free to reply and send your answer. And I'm going to kill the music because I would like to welcome our host today, Natalie. Hello, wiggle the fingers. Say
hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. I am so happy to have Natalie with us today. She is a superstar, rock star when it comes to culture. We had an event, 2 weeks ago? I think we had a panel. She has dropped some amazing wisdom bombs. And so I am so keen to hear her take the stage today and talk about what she loves most, which is building culture. So Natalie is an expert facilitator with a deep experience in strategy, in service design, and culture transformation. Along with her co-founder, she launched the Future Kind Collective in March 2021 to show companies how to move from culture as words, very often painted somewhere on a wall. Now not anymore because there are no more walls, except our own, to culture as action. And to become the legacy leaving company that no one wants to leave. Okay, I'm here for that, Natalie. I'm here for it. The stage is yours. Take it away. Tell us what you have in store for us today.
Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am going to get started and introduce myself properly and the Future Kind Collective and all of that good stuff. But selfishly, I'd love to learn a little bit about all of you. So I hope that's okay. So we're going to start off with, going to start off with Where in the World, but that doesn't want to play ball today.
There we go.
We're
Casper.
we're in this space together, this white space. Amazing.
Just lean into it.
Yes. Cool. So you may, if you've used Butter before, you may have seen this flashcard. It should have a map, and you should be able to click on the map where you are globally. But we noticed this glitch before we started. We fixed it, and it's come back. So doesn't want to tell us today. So let's move on. So now that I know where you are in the world, we're in this white space, this kind of like middle ground together. I'd now love to know which of these roles best describes your day job. So we've got founder, CEO, senior leader, designer, facilitators, project or delivery managers, engineers, developers, people or HR leaders, and then the catch-all, I wear many hats. You can't put me in a box, and that's okay. I'm sure many of us will fall into that category really, but if there's one that fits best. Awesome. Oh, so we've got quite a varied group. That's great to see. And I'm really confident that all of you will get something out of today. So I'm really glad to see we've got some variation here. So my final question for you, and apologies if this is a little small, is how would you rate your experience of culture design? So on one end, we've got, I'm totally new to culture design, teach me everything. And on the other end, we've got, I'm a culture pro and interested to see a new approach. Oh my God, what a diverse group we have in terms of experiences and roles. I love this. I mean, we have a perfect spread. What can I say? Awesome. Okay, so I know all of you a little bit better. I guess it's only fair that I start the presentation and give you a bit more about me and the Future Kind Collective before we get into all things culture design. So bear with me while I share my screen. Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to take perfect as you can see it all good. Amazing. Yes. Perfect. Okay, so I know a bit about you now. Let me tell you a bit about me. So just in case you can't see me in the tiny cube, this is me. This is a photo of me in my favorite suit. Me and my co-founder recently had new headshots done, and I want to use them at any opportunity because I never look this good. So here you go. You might see a couple of these throughout the talk. So I'm Nat, and as Anna Maria mentioned, my background is in strategy, customer experience, service design, and facilitation. And I now apply all of these skills to the wonderful world of culture design. And I guess aside from that, just to hear a bit about my passions and what I kind of bring to the table is I personally am passionate about lifetime learning. So growth is one of my core values, actually one of the core values of our business as well. I care a lot about inclusive cultures and, you know, really what it means to create belonging and connection. And I also care a lot about compassionate leadership. And so I'm really excited for the panel later on leadership that I'm joining as well. And I'm on a mission to help companies treat their people better and create amazing spaces for their people to work within. But I'm not doing this alone. And that's because of the woman here on my right. So I am one half of the Future Kind Collective, along with my co-founder, Alicia, who you can see here. So we created the Future Kind Collective to build a world where culture always comes first and where all people get to work for kinder, fairer, and better designed companies. And we launched the Future Kind Collective at the beginning of 2021. And it was in response to 3 key problems that I'm going to talk to now. So the first problem was the fact that 70% of companies fail at a time when we need more change and less incumbency and less complacency than ever. So we wanted to be part of solving for that problem. But before we could do that, we needed to understand what was driving it. And there's lots of studies that talk about why so many companies fail. And there's a particular one by CV Insights that looked into why 70% of companies fail. And out of the 20 reasons that they found, at least a quarter could have been overcome by a focus on culture. But the problem is that culture is often seen as a nice to have. So again, we were like, okay, well, how do we get people to think about the urgency of culture? And I guess it's all well and good knowing that culture is important, but the third problem that we found is the fact that many businesses simply don't have the resources to unlock the strategic potential of their culture. And this is because creating culture is in many ways the same as designing amazing product experiences. And it requires people-centered thinking and a designer's mindset. But often those skill sets or those roles aren't hired into traditional people and HR roles. So we saw an opportunity to bring those skills to those rooms, given out both of our experience in service design and customer experience. So we solve those problems by showing companies how to move from culture as words to culture as actions and become the legacy leaving company that no one wants to leave. We believe that companies should be created to last for hundreds of years, and that's the type of companies that we want to help create through the culture work that we do. So if you are interested in any of that and you want to talk some more about it, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Our details are on the screen, but I will flash them up again later as well. So no need to worry about that. Okay, cool. Now we know each other. You know more about me. Hopefully that's asked some questions about who the hell I am and why I'm talking about culture. Now's for the real deal, people. Let's get into it. Now, I want to start with a hard truth. And that's that every part of your business can be copied, regardless of how great your products or services or how unique the technology that you use, how innovative your branding is, how streamlined the processes are that you've created. All of it can be copied. And it will, sooner or later, no matter what trademarks or copyrights we have in place, someone will copy what we do. And it's really frustrating, especially when you've worked so hard on something. You know, as a founder myself, like I get how frustrating and difficult that is. But there is one thing that is impossible to copy. And I'm sure you've guessed what it is. It's your culture. And that's because regardless of how great your products and services, it is ultimately delivered by people. And what those people do is defined by the culture that they exist within. And the interesting thing with culture is that even if someone copied everything you did within your culture, your values, your rituals, your hiring and onboarding approach, even if they copied all of that, the results would not be the same. And therefore, they could not recreate the culture that you have because the people and the context are different. And that's why it's impossible to truly copy culture. So if we get our culture right, if we can create an environment for our people to do their best work and to deliver on the company or the project or the team's ambitions, which is a great place to be. Now, the quote that I've got up here is not a direct quote from anyone in particular, but it's something that I have heard many, many times from many different people. And I get it. There's always more pressing issues to deal with than culture, right? There's always some very important, urgent, but maybe slightly short-term goals to focus on, product launches, feature updates, marketing campaigns. They're all more important than culture, right? Wrong. I don't know if that's a sound, but I can't get it up quick enough, so I'm going to make it. Anna Marie is looking to see. Yes, that's the one. Amazing. So here's another hard truth. The longer you wait to design your culture, the more cultural debt you accumulate and the harder it becomes to then design and embed the culture that you want. And that's because if you do nothing with your culture, if we don't work on culture at all, sadly, it doesn't sit there dormant, waiting for when we're ready to give it some attention. It creates itself. It's like, I ain't waiting. as soon as you put people together, culture is created. But if we're not creating it with intention, it won't emerge with our strategic goals and our vision in mind. It becomes like a mishmash version of a culture, bringing together all of the good and the bad from past cultures and workplaces that your people have worked at. And some of it might fit, some of it might be great, but a lot of it won't. And a culture that emerges without any care and attention, a culture developed by chance, risks your company becoming mediocre at best, or at worst, ceasing to exist. And that's something that we want to avoid. Now, I'm someone that loves some stats, so let's look at some stats that really talk to the power of culture. So the first one is that Glassdoor, a research by Glassdoor showed that over half of millennials would now choose culture over salary when making hiring decisions. So no longer can we say, oh, we'll just pay the most in the market. We need a great culture. We need to be able to prove that, because if someone's sitting there and we can only give really vague answers about our culture in an interview, well, they'll go to the place that can tell them exactly what their culture is and how it manifests in their organization. We've then got the fact that staff turnover at places with great culture is 13% compared to 50%, which is a huge cost impact if you're constantly hiring and replacing people, and it will stifle growth as well if we're trying to expand the team. And finally, over a 10-year period, companies with performance enhancing cultures saw revenue growth increase by 600%. 600%! Stats like that always blow my mind. So, I mean, the stats speak for itself. And I have some good news. The good news is that amazing cultures can be designed in exactly the same way that we can design amazing customer experiences. So designing great cultures is all about understanding the needs and frustrations of people. It's solving for them, and it's continually reviewing and refining the experience of the people that work with you. Now, that sounds pretty similar to designing great product experiences. You just swap the word people for customers. And so what we're going to focus on today is how you can get started, how you can get the foundations of a great culture in place. And you'll see some of the design elements come out, especially if that's your background as well. I'm sure you'll recognize some of the things. So here we go. Designing Culture 101. Are we ready? Can I have some emojis? Yeah.
Smooth like butter.
Amazing. Thank you. So there are 3 steps to designing a meaningful and tangible culture. So the first is to define what you stand for. The second is to make it tangible. And the third is to embed it into your day-to-day. Now, we're going to take a look at each of these and dig into the frameworks that we can use at each of these levels. And one thing I should say is that it doesn't matter where you are in your team or in your company journey. You can start this whether it's day one of your company or it's like, you've been around for 20 years, and you can always come back to it and say, actually, the world has changed. There's been a pandemic. There's we're going to pivot to a different direction. We need to relook at our culture and see if it's fit for purpose. And I'd also like to mention that although I talk about this from the concept of a business owner or a founder, these approaches and frameworks, I think, are equally as relevant to the work that we do within organizations. So such as, figuring out how different teams like design or engineering can better collaborate with each other, helping you to establish the right culture for, a new project that's about to kick off. When it comes to projects, actually, it's especially important because we've got fixed timelines and deadlines. So everyone needs to be on the same page, and we need to get clarity on the type of project team that we want to create. So how you're going to work together is vital. So hopefully, no matter what your role, I am confident that you'll get value out of what's in the rest of the talk. So let's dig into it, shall we? So stage 1 of culture design, define what you stand for. So this is about getting crystal clear on the foundations of your business. So your purpose, your vision, your values. And the reason we want to do that is we want to create clarity for everyone that interacts with you. So employees, customers, investors, third parties, suppliers. And we also want to create alignment and cohesion, an anchor for our teams and anyone else that might support what we do, whether it's freelancers, contractors, all of that good stuff. So a tool that we introduced really early on all of our projects is something that we created called the Purpose Pyramid, which is a way to visualize the core components of a business's brand and culture. So you've got purpose at the top. So it all starts with purpose, why you exist, what kind of drove you to start the company, start the project, start the team. You've then got your vision and mission, which is the future that you want to see and how you're going to get there. So the means by which you'll realize that vision. And then finally, you have your values. So the beliefs and attributes that determine what's most important to you as a business, but also how you'll behave with each other and anyone that interacts with the business. Now, we're going to focus on 2 of those. So we're going to focus on purpose and values, because these are most core to creating the foundation of an amazing culture. Together, they define the core of what a company stands for, which is what stage 1 of culture design is all about. So I said I love some stats, so here are some more. So the reason why purpose and values are so important are really shown here. So these stats talk to the impact of being a purpose or values driven company. So organizations that are purpose driven tend to gain more long-term loyalty from customers. They also outperform their competitors on the stock market. And purpose and values can also increase employees' productivity by 225%. So you've got a customer incentive, a financial incentive, and an employee productivity incentive right there. The problem is that what we've often find with purpose and values is that they can be really hard to articulate or uncover. Like, we know the purpose and values are there, but we can't narrow in on what's most important to us or what's really driving what we do. So the question is, how can we get started with defining our company or team or project purpose and values? And so we love to use a framework or a concept called Ikigai to help draw out what a company stands for. And I'm sure that many of you have heard of this before, but if you haven't, I'm going to explain. So Ikigai is a Japanese concept, which means a reason for being. It's illustrated as a Venn diagram with 4 parts, as you can see here. Those 4 parts being moral beliefs, so the things that drive what you do; core strengths, the kind of USP, the things that you do better than anyone else; world needs is like the human, societal, consumer needs that you're responding to; and then value driver is about how do you create return on investment and make money. And the idea is that at the intersection of these 4 elements, you'll find your purpose. Now, we find when we complete this as a team or with our clients, not only do you get clues about what their purpose is, but you also start to see the standards and the principles that are most important to them. So we can start to identify what the core values are from this exercise as well, because they need to be authentic and they need to be driven out of this kind of stuff and the stuff that you and a team really care about. So to bring this to life a bit, here's an example from a company that we worked with last year. So they're called Hatch Enterprise. They're aiming to support underrepresented groups in business. So their purpose is all about building a fairer society by supporting diverse founders into business. And their values focus on building connection, fostering potential, and being experimental. Now, if you look at the output here, you can see the clues of that. So, for example, in moral beliefs, we should all have equal opportunities. We all have valuable skills and ideas and potential. That really speaks to the fostering potential value. Building connections. So in core strengths, they talk a lot about creating inclusion, showing empathy. And they also talk about testing and learning and knowledge sharing, which is very much about being experimental. So that's the kind of things that you're looking for. And when you do it with a team, you see lots of synergies and themes and things that you can start to cluster that really help you narrow in on what's going to be most authentic. And then I guess the key is to also overlay, well, what are we heading for? What are we trying to achieve? Will these values help us do that? So once you've completed this and finalized the output, you have a really incredible onboarding tool for new joiners, and also an anchor for your existing team that can continually bring them together. So that's stage 1, define what you stand for. So stage 2, make it tangible. This is about specifically turning your values from words into action by codifying them into your company's DNA. And we do that through tangible, measurable behaviors. And then we build on this actually in stage 3. So just to clarify what we mean by values, it's the principles or standards of behavior that determine what's most important for us. And from an organizational perspective, they are a company's judgment of what is important to their people and the organization as a whole, and how they expect them to treat each other or anyone that interacts with the business. So it's not just in front of customers, it's also when no one's looking. Like, it should be congruent, we should act the same. And a clear set of values helps everyone that sees your business, whether it's people that want to work for you, whether it's customers that want to buy from you, partners that want to support you, suppliers, investors. It helps them understand what you stand for and what they're also buying into. Ultimately, the ideal situation for any company or team is one where there is overlap between your employees' personal values and the company's values. And that's because, first and foremost, you'll attract more like-minded people to work with you. Second of all, your people are more likely to be satisfied and motivated and productive in what they do. They're also more likely to be loyal and stay longer working with you. And finally, and this is, I think, sometimes quite an overlooked thing, but when people's values overlap with their company, with the work that they do, they're more likely to advocate for your business outside of work, which can lead to both customer acquisition and new candidates, new potential employees being interested in working with you. So there really is a lot to gain from having unique, authentic values. But the problem is that most companies define their values to some degree, and they stick it on a website or stick it on a wall back in the day, like Anna Maria mentioned, and they leave it at that, which means really those values are nothing more than words on a page. So in order to create a strong, positive culture that becomes a competitive advantage, we need to make those values rather tangible, and we do this by turning them into measurable behaviors. So here's what I mean by this. So at that top level where it says your values, most companies create values, as I said before, which state what they care about. Now, good companies will also think about and make clear the behaviors that support those values. So what do those values look like on a good day? But really great companies are also honest with themselves about what behaviors directly undermine those values. What behaviors won't we tolerate in light of these values that we've created? And this is, again, how we hold ourselves and each other accountable, because every good behavior has an opposite, and we need to know what those trade-offs are. And I should also mention that the reason we've called these good day and bad day behaviors is an acknowledgement that it is impossible for us to live our values all of the time perfectly. Sometimes stuff will go on that means that we're having a bad day and we might undermine our values. But that's a really great opportunity for, a teammate or a leader or a manager to check in and say, I noticed that you did this. Is everything okay? Now, if that bad day behavior persists endlessly despite these conversations, then that's a pattern, and it suggests that, we don't have a cultural fit there. But the language here is more about acknowledging that, we're all human and we can't be 100% all of the time. So again, I love to give examples. So I'm going to actually use the Future Kind Collective as an example now. So these are our values. So compassion, integrity, growth, and fun. And if we zoom in on the first one, so compassion. So what this means to us is that we believe that kindness is key in everything we do: work, life, relationships, family. It just permeates really for us. And we believe that it should be given generously. We also believe, as I mentioned before, that we would all benefit from a kinder, fairer future. And so something that we want ourselves to hold ourselves accountable to, and anyone that works with us, is showing up with respect at all times and standing proudly for things like social justice. So that's kind of like a very high level. Now we can dig a bit deeper and say, well, what does that, how do you expect me to behave as a result of that? And so here's an example of a good day behavior, a good day and a bad day behavior in the context of compassion. So a good day behavior is that we assume the most generous assumption of someone's attention, even when it hurts, even when it feels like really shady. And what that means in practice is, if I turn up to an internal call with my co-founder Alicia and start moaning about someone that we're working with, she can hold me accountable to compassion and say, okay, what's the most generous assumption of that person's intentions, rather than engaging in a gossip fest that undermines the culture that we're trying to create. Which leads quite nicely onto the example of a bad day behavior. So we don't believe in, or we don't want to act in a way where we jump to negative conclusions, or instantly judge people. And because we've laid this out, it makes it much easier to have that conversation than it would be if we didn't have these laid out like that. Okay, so now we are on to the final stage of designing your culture. So let's recap. We've defined what we stand for. We've made this tangible by turning our values into behaviors. And now it's time to embed all of this into our people experience by defining the rituals, the systems, and the processes which are going to reinforce our values. So for this, it's time to introduce something that we call the culture code blueprint. And it starts with your purpose, so why you exist as a company or a team or a project. It's underpinned by the values which define what you care about and determine how you expect to treat each other and those that you interact with. And so the final part of the blueprint is about defining what you actually do with that. So purpose and values is kind of what you say, and culture is what you do. So what do we do on a daily basis, and how do we behave? It's really at this point that we start to see that strong, tangible culture coming out. So we're going to zoom in on this part here. So a company or a team with a strong culture that creates a competitive advantage, they are clear about how their purpose and values influences key areas of their business. So we've already mentioned behaviors. So they're clear on the observable, measurable behaviors which support their values. They design their rituals. So what I mean by this is meetings, gathering, communications. They design those around their values and make decisions according to them. They also choose frameworks and tools and technologies, so systems based on their values, and they design their policies, including stuff like compensation, benefit, leave policies around their values too. And finally, they use their values as anchors for their key processes, especially in vital moments, as we know, like hiring, onboarding, and progression. If we have a value and we can't meaningfully say, well, how does this help us make a hiring decision? Or how does this help us decide whether that person deserves a promotion? Then it's really not a strong enough value to make a tangible high performance culture. So each company and team should really have examples in each of these buckets that help reinforce and support their values. But I want to share with you another way to look at this, and the designers in the room will see the design element really coming out here. So another way to visualize this is mapping the culture journey or the people experience within your organization, just like you would a customer experience. Now, customer experiences can be quite unique and complex depending on what you do. But the great thing about people experiences is that the general framework is exactly the same across all companies and industries. So we use something called the 4 E's to illustrate this. And just to bring that to life, at the entice part, every company is going to recruit, every company is going to need to market themselves. Every company is going to have to do an enter or an onboarding experience. And, the bulk of the culture journey or the people experience is really engaged. So communications, well-being, creating psychological safety, collaboration, making decisions, all things that all companies do. We just need to take the skeleton or the framework and say, okay, now let's overlay our unique purpose and values and talk about how we're going to make those come to life. So here's an external example of a company that does this really well. So Patagonia, they are a outdoor clothing company. They care a lot about the environment. That's their whole kind of ethos and purpose. And they are really a really excellent example of like a purpose and values driven company that's long been reaping the benefits of religiously living their values. So they have famously like record breaking staff retention. So people rarely leave. And apparently when roles do come up, they have up to 9,000 people apply because their values are so strong. 9,000 applicants is an absolute HR recruitment nightmare, but like it's a great thing for a customer, for a company to be able to stand up and say, hey, like this is something that we're able to do because our culture is so strong. And I guess that application point, so flexibility is a really important value for them. So the founder actually wrote a book called Let My People Go Surfing. So, that tells you a lot about probably what the processes and policies that they have internally. But one of them I thought was really interesting was that they massively subsidize childcare, particularly on site within Patagonia, and it's estimated to cost them like 60K or more a year. Now, this stat was particularly from prior the pandemic, so I don't know how that's changed, but at that time, they were able to report 100% return rate for new mums, which I think is really huge because that can be a massive drop-off point, especially for first-time mums and things like that. So, that retention point is really key as well. As if we're going to get like hard-faced about it, the retention point impacts the bottom line. So I think the Guardian reported that it cost around 25K per employee to onboard them and bring them up to a level of productivity as the other people in the team. And this is simply a cost that Patagonia doesn't need to worry about because they're not seeing that retention on an ongoing basis. Now, I'm conscious of time, but I am almost finished, I promise. So I just wanted to close out by mentioning that what I've spoke about so far is very internally facing, but once you've embedded your values internally, you can actually extend that to your externally facing functions. And it's really important for us to think of culture as permeating across the entire organization. So we can look at our operations, we can look at the way we engage with product, we can look at the technology we use, and we can say, is there anything that's undermining our values or supporting them here, or do we need to make a decision that brings us back into alignment? And again, to look at another external example, so this is an example from Starling, which is a challenger fully digital bank, and they have used their values to influence their externally facing decisions in that they recently made headlines for making the decision to remove all advertising from Facebook. And this was because they believed that the social media giant wasn't doing enough to protect users from financial fraud. And this relates directly to the first value, which you can see there, of making money equal. If you look on their website, that's very much about everyone getting the most out of banking and being safe whilst doing so, despite their background and financial literacy. So their belief about Facebook directly undermined that, and they made a very decisive choice to bring themselves back into alignment. So that's a really good example of how values kind of look externally as well. So the 3 steps to designing a strong culture that creates a competitive advantage are the ones that you can see here. So define what you stand for, make it tangible, and embed it into your day-to-day. But I would be lying if I said it stopped here, because the truth is that it doesn't end after this. And there is actually a fourth step, a fourth and final step, but it's a step that goes on forever, so maybe not that final. But that is, you just like a design process, just like a customer experience, we need to constantly review and refine our culture, because it can't be fixed, and so it can never be done. And we must continually listen to our people and our customers and adapt our culture based on what we learn, as well as aligning to the stage of growth that you're at and in response to external events as well. So that's why this step lasts forever. And I think that's quite exciting, to be constantly working on your culture and refining the experience of working together. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I'm always excited that it's never ending. I'd be sad if it did, for obvious reasons, but also because designing culture is actually a lot of fun. So I think I've gone over, so I'm really apologize for that. I had 4 points that I wanted to leave you with, but they are very much what I've said before. So they can copy everything but your culture. Ignoring your culture puts you in debt. Define what you stand for and make it tangible, and never stop reviewing and refining your culture. I think I've got 2 minutes left, so I've saved some time.
This is going to be a rapid fire question, Q&A. We've got loads of questions
so
for you in the chat, Natalie. All right, so let's get on with that and see what we've picked up there. So Arkui, I'm going to give you the chat because you're the brave one that queued himself. This is like question answer, like tack, 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 because we are at time. There we go, over to you.
Honestly, I love the entire talk, Natalie, and one of the biggest takeaways that I felt, because I've seen it myself, was when you create a loyalty and a good work culture and you actually try to support your teams, they actually come back for you. And so, I run an agency, but I do a lot of pro bono work, especially for dog rescuing. And I've seen the creators have outsourced. They literally come and be like, you helped us so well, you trained us so well, and you always, maintain boundaries and everything, that they ended up doing work with me for pro bono on my dog rescue personal brand and things that I'm creating. So I would like to ask you, do you have any tips on creating a better work culture in terms of supporting your creatives as well, or the people you hire and outsource instead of just the employees?
Oh, well, first of all, I love that you do pro bono work with dog rescue. I have 2 rescues who have kept quite quiet during this talk, so that's good. So do I have any tips for supporting creatives within your team? I think the thing that instantly comes to mind is that it's about understanding the different ways of working and the different preferences within your team, especially in a remote setting as well, where you maybe don't get to learn that face to face and as quickly as you would in a real life setting. So doing stuff like creating personal user manuals that talk about how you like to collaborate, how you like to receive feedback, how what does a good day look like, what does a bad day look like for you personally, and what kind of, what are your working hours, what system do you like to be contacted on. Like that can give people a lot of freedom, because they know that they can communicate how they best like to work, and that people will listen and respond to that. So that's a really quick answer. One thing I should say is that I'm more than happy to go through and answer people's questions like offline. I can write something and you can share it out, Anna Maria. I'm more than happy to do that.
Yes. I was about to say the same thing. Because our agenda is super packed today, it's becoming very hard to kind of extend the session duration. I guess everyone is kind of like, I need to eat something, I had to go to the restroom. So the time in between session is very precious today.
I know, of course.
All of the rest, there's some amazing and for sure not easy to answer questions in the chat. We're going to pluck them out, send them over to you, and then for everyone here, we are going to pack them into our virtual goodie bag, the takeaway that is going to reach your emails in a couple of days from now, together with all the recordings. So then yeah, you don't miss an opportunity to asynchronously pick Natalie's brain.
Yes, I feel like that's the best outcome actually, because that's remote collaboration in action.
Yes. So thank you so much, Natalie. This was packed with so much insights, great examples, cool frameworks. You were very, very generous with your sharing, also in sync with your company's values. This was also a great example. G says she loves the art in your room, so I didn't want to let everyone go before we were able to kind of acknowledge that. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you so much for your questions. We're going to get back to them. And if you are in the mood to meet some cool folks and hang out with me in 20 minutes, we are meeting in the networking and connection session, whose link I dropped in the chat. Wish you all a beautiful rest of the day and see you around. Stay tuned for Collab Fest cooler sessions. And we see Natalie later on, actually, in a really cool panel on leadership in remote teams. So hope to see you guys there. Yes, there we go. Thank you so much, Natalie. The chat is buzzing with thanks and amazing session, so well deserved. All right, see everyone later. Take care. Bye.